Useless. That's what the manager spat, loud enough for the whole hangar to hear. The black mechanic froze, grease on his hands, eyes heavy with humiliation. Around him, engineers smirked, whispering like he didn't belong. To them, he was just another nobody wasting space. But what the manager didn't know was this. In less than 10 minutes, the entire airport would be staring at the man they had just mocked, and their laughter would turn into stunned silence. Tell us in comments, have you ever been underestimated like this? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was a gray morning at the airport, the kind where the sun seemed too tired to break through the clouds. For most people, it was just another day of rushing flights, rolling suitcases, and endless announcements echoing across terminals. But for Marcus, it was another day in the hangar, a place that smelled of fuel, oil, and cold metal. He wasn't dressed in a sharp uniform or polished shoes like the pilots and managers. Instead, his overalls were worn, stained with grease, his hands rough from years of hard work. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another mechanic. Ordinary, forgettable. But what people didn't see was the history behind those calloused hands. Marcus had grown up in a neighborhood where kids dreamed of flying but rarely even saw a plane up close. While others chased easier paths, he spent nights under dim lamps, sketching engines, reading manuals he borrowed from a library that smelled of dust and old paper. He wasn't trained in fancy schools, didn't carry a degree from some big-name institution, but he had something else: experience, instinct, and a gift for fixing what others thought was impossible. Inside the hangar, though respect was scarce, pilots walked past without a glance. Managers barked orders like he was invisible. Even new recruits, fresh out of training, looked down on him because of the color of his skin and the simplicity of his title, mechanic. He learned to swallow it to keep his head down, but deep inside, the weight of being constantly underestimated left scars no one could see. That morning, the tension in the hangar felt different. A corporate jet was grounded, its engine coughing, refusing to start. Executives were waiting, impatient and restless, their expensive watches ticking louder than the mechanic's tools. And as Marcus rolled his toolbox closer, ready to help, the sharp voice of a manager cut through the air, dripping with disdain. What would you do if the very people who needed you most dismissed you as worthless before you even had the chance to prove yourself? The moment the insult landed, the hangar's energy shifted. Useless! The manager sneered again, his voice carrying over the hum of machines. Mechanics nearby chuckled nervously, some looking away, others smirking as if agreeing. Marcus tightened his grip on the wrench in his hand, his jaw stiff, but he said nothing. He had heard worse. He had lived through worse. Yet no matter how many times it happened, it burned the same way. The grounded jet loomed behind them, its sleek white body a symbol of wealth and power. But right now, it was nothing more than an expensive shell without its engine. Executives paced outside, checking their watches, whispering impatiently. Each second lost meant money, contracts, and reputations at stake. But inside the hangar, instead of urgency, there was arrogance. The manager barked orders at others, deliberately leaving Marcus on the sidelines, as though his presence was an embarrassment. Marcus leaned against his toolbox, watching as the younger mechanics fumbled with the engine. They had the textbooks, the training, the polished uniforms, but not the instinct. Hours of trial and error left the jet no closer to roaring back to life. Sweat trickled down their temples, frustration etched into their faces. The manager grew red with anger, snapping at everyone in sight, his pride cracking with each passing minute. Still, Marcus stayed silent. He had learned patience, the kind of patience that came from years of being underestimated. He studied the way the engine sputtered, the faint clicking sound that betrayed its secret. He didn't need a manual to know what was wrong. He could hear it, feel it, almost breathe it in. His mind was already racing with the solution, but no one cared to ask. To them, he was still just the useless black mechanic in dirty overalls. Then the tension sharpened. One of the executives stormed into the hangar, his voice sharp, demanding answers. "Why is this plane still on the ground?" The manager stammered excuses, pointing fingers at his crew. The air grew heavier, eyes darting, blame shifting. And all the while, Marcus remained in the corner, invisible, until the jet sputtered violently, a coughing roar that silenced everyone. The engine was on the edge of complete failure. One wrong move now, and it wouldn't just mean a delay. It could mean disaster, and for the first time, all eyes turned, not to the manager, not to the fumbling mechanics, but to Marcus, the man they had dismissed just minutes before. Would they finally let him step in? Or would arrogance drive the jet and their pride into ruin? The silence in the hangar was deafening. The manager's face flushed, his confidence collapsing under the weight of failure. The executives stood just a few feet away, their impatience now boiling into fury. This wasn't just an inconvenience anymore, it was a disaster unfolding in real time. Every second the jet sat dead on the ground cost them money, reputation, and power. And the man they had trusted to lead the repair had run out of excuses. Marcus stepped forward slowly, the sound of his boots against the concrete echoing like a drum beat. The manager's glare shot toward him instantly. "Stay back," he snapped, his pride clinging to control. But the executives had seen enough. One of them raised a hand, silencing the manager, and nodded at Marcus. "You," he said. "Do you know what's wrong?" Marcus didn't answer with words. He placed his wrench on the toolbox, rolled up his sleeves, and climbed onto the engine's platform. For a moment, the entire hangar held its breath. His hands moved with certainty, pulling panels, tightening bolts, adjusting wires in ways that looked almost effortless. Where others had fumbled blindly, Marcus moved with precision, like a surgeon repairing a failing heart. The manager muttered under his breath, his voice dripping with bitterness. "He's going to break it worse." But within minutes, the sound that had haunted the hangar all morning began to shift. The engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life with a thunderous growl. The vibrations shook the walls, a living beast awakened by the very man they had mocked. Gasps filled the room. The younger mechanics froze, staring wide-eyed. The executives exchanged stunned glances. And the manager, the one who had spat the word useless with such venom, stood rooted in place, his mouth opening but no words coming out. His arrogance had been stripped bare in front of everyone. Marcus climbed down, wiping the grease from his hands, his face calm but his eyes burning with quiet pride. He didn't boast. He didn't need to. The roaring jet behind him spoke louder than any words could, but the real question hung heavy in the air. Would this moment finally force them to see his worth? Or would prejudice blind them even now, pretending nothing had changed? What do you think happens next? Would they finally give Marcus the respect he deserved? Or find another way to push him back into the shadows? The roar of the engine still echoed through the hangar when silence fell again, this time different. It wasn't the silence of arrogance or dismissal, it was the silence of stunned realization. The jet, moments from being grounded indefinitely, now purred like a beast ready to take flight. Executives who had been seconds away from canceling million-dollar meetings now stood frozen, their eyes locked on Marcus. The manager swallowed hard, his face pale, the weight of humiliation pressing down heavier than the roar of the engine. For years he had brushed Marcus aside, used his position to belittle him, to make him feel small. But in a few short minutes, Marcus had exposed him, not just to the executives, but to everyone in the hangar. Pride had failed. Prejudice had failed. And the man he called useless had just saved them all. An executive finally broke the silence. He didn't look at the manager. He looked at Marcus. "You just saved us," he said, his voice carrying more respect than Marcus had ever heard in that place. The words weren't loud, but they were heavy, shifting the air. Around them, younger mechanics straightened, their smirks gone, replaced with something closer to awe. Marcus didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply nodded, his calm presence more powerful than any speech. He had proven himself not with arguments, not with anger, but with undeniable skill. But this story isn't just about a mechanic and a jet. It's about every person who has been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed because of the color of their skin or the dirt on their hands. It's about the quiet strength it takes to endure humiliation and still rise, proving worth in a world determined to ignore it. Marcus walked away from that hangar knowing something had changed. Maybe not everything, maybe not overnight, but enough to make them remember his name. And for those watching, his story is a reminder. Sometimes the people you dismiss are the very ones holding everything together. So I'll ask you, how many more Marcuses have been silenced, ignored, or pushed aside before the world realizes their true worth? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.